but now as a Christian, to me, the idea of believing in God, it's a relationship. It's a notion of communion with the Creator that flows from a sense of wanting to be closer to God, not out of a sense of fear of what would be the case if there was no God, but rather out of a sense of reverence and awe because there is a God.
Jack,
so that motivation would be.
Yeah. John next, thank you.
If I can hop in, I think it's a personal question. That is, are you, as far as whether or not a life can have meaning. I think it's a personal question as far as whether or not you can be satisfied with the short-term effects versus long-term effects. I mean, Jack, what you're saying is basically like, I don't feel like, I realize that I'm going to die, but that doesn't mean that my life is futile. I mean, because I'm happy with the short-term effects. I go out and I do my things. And that for me is enough for my life to have a meaning without futile. I don't feel that way at all. If, however, you need to have this big long-term goal in mind for your life to have a meaning, then no, I don't think that you possibly could be happy as an atheist if that's where you get or if that your life could have meaning. If you get your value from the ultimate long-term, and if your value set is something that's, what's my impact on the world? But for me, again, my point is that it's a personal question. And personally, I'm happy with the short term. I don't look at it like, why put your shoes on if you're just going to have to take them off again later? I mean, I'm happy wearing shoes in the meantime.
And that's certainly one, if there is no creator, that's certainly one among an infinite amount of perspectives an individual can take on existence, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, there are an infinite number of takes.
It's ultimately, does existence itself, as I mentioned earlier, was our sense of your value set actually mattering? I would say, in the grand scheme of things, absolutely not, if there is no God.
Well, I mean, fundamentally, no. I mean, if there is no God, there is still a purpose to actually gaining knowledge. It makes your life better in the short term. It makes your life better in the long term. And I think to say that it's ultimately futile sort of rings of, how shall we say, a misplaced defeatism, in that you could have looked up the sky 1,000 years ago and said, well, we'll never get to the stars. Or planets, as they would have then, the wandering stars. Things change. We get a broader horizon. And you get people like Sophie, here saying that, well, we know certain extrapolations of the universe from what we know already, and those projections point to heat death and such like. But if you like, that's assuming that you've actually got, a good enough understanding of the universe to extrapolate it several billion years into the future. That's a bold extrapolation. The one thing that is certain, that if you don't gain any more knowledge, then, you do lock yourself into this sort of futile path, that if you don't gain the knowledge, you will certainly sort of die. I mean, it's, like arriving on a desert island and sort of saying, well, I don't think there's any water on here, so what's the point in looking?
But this is interesting. Can I say something?
Please do, Jack. Yeah.
You said misplaced defeatism, and what's interesting about that is you're beginning with an assumption, Thunderfoot, that I don't think, scientifically speaking, is justified. In other words, you speak as though one shouldn't have a defeatist mentality now, but the thing is, that's not science. That's actually a philosophical position that you're taking regarding existence itself, when existence itself doesn't entail any of that at all. And I think that sometimes you confound the two. You seem to impose science with your philosophical presuppositions together as though they're one, but in reality they're not.
No, this is, if you like, the natural order of the universe. There's a reason why electrons stick to atoms. To nucleus. I mean, do they do it because of some philosophy, because of some choice, or is it because of some combination of actual laws? The reason that people, or people like me, are valuable in society, and that is because societies value knowledge. This is
because value, right? Value.
No, these are the societies that propagate
just a second, gentlemen. One at a time, please. And I know that there are other people wanting to talk. Jack first, Thunder's response, and then I'm going to move on to Aaron.
speaking of laws of nature don't speak of worth. They don't speak of value, Thunderfoot. Though when you say misplaced defeatism, that is value and worth that you have created yourself. And it seems as though you're trying to conflate that with this sense of a law that we may see in nature. And I just don't see how that works. Thunder.
No, I mean, I fundamentally disagree. The universe actually has order to it. Those order are caused by naturalistic laws, right? Now, in certain cases, they're fairly simplistic and easy to understand. In more complicated systems, sand on a beach, for instance. Why does sand always accumulate on beaches? I mean, is it because it's more moral? Is it because of some philosophy? No, it's summation. It would actually be the opposite of entropy. It would be enthalpy, if anything. Entropy would. The point is, nonetheless, that even in complicated systems, there is preferred situations. Now, that's not a philosophical statement. That's an observation of the universe, right? And in the same way, the pattern of thought that I am actually putting forward here, I would say it's like the sun on the beach. It's a pattern that is, if you were given a million societies, which ones will, sit on the desert island and die of thirst in the hope that it'll rain or something, or those who go out and look for water. Right? Those are two philosophical positions that you could take if you're on your desert island, but only one of those will actually lead to you surviving. Right? So in that sense, I would say this isn't, if you like, a philosophy. This is the natural order of the universe. Get out.
I'm sorry.
Get off your ass and actually discover something.
You want to make it sound like it seems odd to me because you're presupposing the meaning and value of your approach to existence, and you're somehow wanting to impose it upon the laws of which we observe. But the fact is that the language and the meaning of which we have is one of which, if there is no creator, we've created.
You're viewing life.
I know that this conversation probably going for a while, but I'm trying to balance. Go on very quickly, Thunder.
You're viewing life as a first-person game. Don't look at it like that. Look at it from the perspective of space.
Why not?
Because
why? It's interesting. You say I should look at it from a perspective of space. See, once again, you're trying to push thinking of it in a certain perspective, and I'm saying that has nothing to do with the laws of nature. That has to do with your philosophical position.
No, I'm trying to look at it in an objective light, not in an anthropomorphic light. You look at things in an anthropomorphic light, and you'll come to all sorts of conclusions, like the weather has a human character, and sometimes it's out to get you, and sometimes it's being nice to you. You talk to your car like it's a person. You invent people in your mind who are powerful father figures who you actually get mental kicks out of being nice to. Right? This is an anthropomorphic view of the universe. You're playing life as a first-person game. Right? If you detach yourself from that, and take an objective view of it.
For this reason, I'm terribly sorry, Jack, and I'm trying to ensure that there is sufficient balance for you to address all the points that are being made, but we've got other people who are desperately wanting to make comments, and I'm going to move on, and I apologise to Thunder for shifting topic, but Oren is wanting to say something, and then I'm going to move to Sophia. Oren.